Over the past several years, there have been many instances in medicine, of which I'm sure you all know exactly what I'm talking about, where people felt that there was narrative control, there was anti-scientific behavior going on, people were getting bad advice from doctors. It was some kind of weird woke takeover in essence. Now, I use woke to mean cult-like adherence to liberal social orthodoxy, so it's not like they were going to people and saying, you got a cold, you should be gay or anything like that. But there certainly was elements of that in some medicine, especially with the gender ideology stuff. Now, there's a lot to break down in the manipulation, the corruption of medicine today. So we've got a great panel that will be talking about all of this. Chloe, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'm Chloe Carmichael. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I have a new book about the mental health benefits of free speech for this exact reason, that even during graduate school, I felt like I had to keep everything inside. I wasn't allowed to ask questions about certain sacred cow topics. And so finally during COVID, it was like a switch flipped and I started saying what I really thought. And that's what got me interested in the mental health benefits of free speech.
Right on. We also have Naomi Best.
Hi, I'm Naomi. You can find me Naomi Epps Best on X and Substack. I am a dissident therapy student. I blew the whistle in Wall Street Journal about some crazy education on sexuality at Santa Clara University, Catholic school. So yeah, it's been a whirlwind, but just here to talk about the woke critical theory takeover in therapy education and the impact it's having on the field.
And a man who needs no introduction, Dr. Drew.
Good to see you, Tim. Dr. Pinsky, I've practiced medicine for years, worked in a psychiatric hospital for 30 years. And I've decided, Tim, my new sort of title is time traveler. I'm a time traveler. I have been practicing medicine for so many years, particularly in the mental health side. I've seen every crappy idea come and go and come back and then go. And I have some experience as a result. But my wife will kill me if I don't say, please check out Ask Dr. Drew. She produces that show. It's a streaming show on Rumble, so check it out over there, and YouTube and wherever you get it, dr.tv. We started because of, you called yourself a dissident, student dissident?
I would say.
You look like a dissident. So I'm also a dissident.
Thank you.
It's a new version of dissidence. And we started our streaming show in response to the craziness and the mass formation around COVID. And so been doing it ever since.
That's the best way to put it, I guess, the mass formation psychosis.
Yeah.
But it's also like there's some weird cult-like takeover, anti-scientific, rigid, in medicine, psychology, et cetera. So why don't we do this? You blew the whistle. This is like the big story in the forefront, and it's kind of gross.
It's gross.
But let's talk about it and start there. What happened and what'd you blow the whistle on?
Yeah, so I'm in my final year of a marriage and family therapy training program, and one of the final classes I had to take is called Human Sexuality. Great, it's a requirement in California to have some education on that. But I first enrolled in this course last summer, and I found sadomasochistic erotica in the required reading, describing a woman being punished with gang sex for taking off her collar. Her husband was upset by that. So there was that. There was just straight up pornography that we were to view in class, a pornographic illustration guide, all sorts of sex acts with however many number of people, and a sheep at one point, I will mention.
Wait, what?
Yeah, so there was a picture of bestiality. It was you're a little excited.
Dude.
It was a man having sex.
I guess I am. If that's where pride went, I am the most shameful person.
Yeah, it's pretty shameful what was in there, but the real kicker was the comprehensive sexual autobiography final. I was prompted to chronicle my sexual past and present. When did you start masturbating? What are key moments in your sexual history? What are your erotic goals and how will you achieve them? Like an action plan or something in this final. And then ultimately, how is your sex life going to affect your clinical practice? So I'm reading this going, what the heck are they teaching? And I don't want to do a sexual autobiography. That's ridiculous. So I try to get an accommodation for literally a year. I go to the professor, the chair, the dean, the provost, Title IX, alleged sexual harassment. I was showing the priest at my university, director of campus ministry, pornography, and all he did was offer me prayer. Really, really nice. Thank you, Father. But yeah, I was just denied at every turn. And eventually I dropped that class because I was put into a breakout group with a man and prompted to discuss my masturbation. And I said, I'm a married woman. This is disgusting. I'm not doing this.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but again, it's required. So I had to re-enroll in the same course. And I requested the accommodation that Muslim students were given to take the course remotely. So I asked the professor, hey, Muslim students got this accommodation. I would like the same one based off my Christian beliefs. And he said, why don't we have a Zoom meeting to talk about it? In the Zoom meeting, he promised me professionalism. He promised me no required sexual disclosure. And several weeks later, I'm sitting in class being asked to write something down that I dislike about my genitals to be read aloud to the class. So that was a false promise. And I tried to keep my head down. I really did. But my final straw was a sex dungeon tour in which a woman was flogged, beaten, gagged, wrapped in plastic, just the whole, put in a guillotine. And the professor ends the video and says, so who wants to try it? I walked out. I wrote an op-ed for the Wall Street Journal and they ran it.
Was it, what was the gender breakdown of the class?
It's like it was probably like 18 men and 4 women. I mean, no, sorry. Opposite.
18 women.
18 women and 4 men. Yeah. So
Because most psychology and mental health programs skew very, very heavily.
Yes.
female.
Were the professors dudes?
the professor was a dude who shared his own interest in kink.
Is this just like a guy who's trying to groom young women for?
That's what it felt like.
Using his position of power, no less, like a position of power, and he has the power of grades. And
yeah.
I mean, also as a student, I've been in situations too as a student, and it's like you come in there genuinely saying, okay, dear professor, you know more than me.
Right.
I'm going to defer to you. Like maybe something feels weird to me, but who am I to object? But I'm so glad that you found you said you drew the line. I mean, good for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly an abuse of power. And this dude, this professor, openly talked about his kink proclivities and was talking with another student, like a side conversation in front of everybody, about going to the Folsom Street Fair in San Francisco. Do you know what that is? Essentially, a bunch of men get together in leather and walk each other around on leashes.
But there was also that thing in San Fran where the guys were giving each other oral sex in public in front of everybody.
Yeah, that's one of them. In fact, on their website, they say that they have a 3 strikes rule for having sex in public. So you can have 2 blowjobs before the 3rd one, they'll kick you out and cite you.
I think we should invade California.
Is
that a yes, Dr. Drew?
Oh, hell yes. That's enthusiastic.
You're looking at me like, give me a
I'll
small...
lead the troops.
Everybody else is invading
Save
California.
us.
Why not?
Well, I guess technically Trump is those ICE raids
Yeah.
that are going on, but that's a whole other story.
There's a whole. I didn't expect to get into that story today, but yeah, living in California is just a nightmare. But I want to say something. I had to apologize to Naomi at breakfast this morning because as a time traveler, I was in the early '80s. I got involved in the radio because there was this thing that we just stopped calling grids and started calling AIDS. And there was so much still residual Puritanism, I guess I'd call it, around sexuality. You were not allowed to talk to young people about this thing. And the prevailing attitude at the time was, well, why would young people need to know about that? Don't even talk to them about it. And I thought, this is crazy. I got to get out and talk about it. This is dangerous. And we were also trying to demystify the biology of sexuality. That was the whole goal, that there's STDs and there's function and there's reproductive health. And you should understand it's simple. You should understand it. I did not intend this.
Well,
I did not intend anything like this. And we're in this world right now. What you need to know is this sex positive group took over sexual health, where you are not allowed to say anything anywhere about anybody's sexuality that has any negativity associated with it ever. And so the whole field, and particularly where I run amok with it, is in sexual addictions, which I have to deal with all the time, and they are serious. And you can't how dare you even say that? So it's bad. It hurts people.
You have to affirm people's self-harm.
At all times, in all situations.
It was actually with AIDS and HIV that I kind of ran into one of my first hard bumps, like in my psychology training too. So we were in, like a cross-cultural breakout discussion, and talking about how the U.S. is supplying, or at the time was, I don't know what's going on, this is a decade ago, but supplying medicine to pregnant women in Africa that had HIV to prevent them from passing HIV on to their baby, which is great. But then I guess that the discussion was around the fact that at the time, the technology was such that once the women gave birth, if they chose to breastfeed, they were still going to be passing HIV to their baby. Yeah. And we were spending a lot of money on this medication. And I just made this passing comment. I was like, I wonder if we should consider telling them, since the medication is limited, that maybe they're only eligible if they're going to practice a hygiene once they have the baby. And this colleague student, she looks at me and she goes, "Careful, Chloe." And there was like this edge in her voice. And I said, "Careful of what?" And then the professor was like, "Okay, ladies, let's move it on," you know? And it was just, it was my first time really bumping up against realizing what was unsayable, you know, like it was, and then I kept running into it. But I mean, yeah, you're right though. I think there's something about the sex positive movement that just, it's one thing to encourage people to do what they want to do.
Yes.
But when we start running into stuff that's unsayable, ironically, that's when mental health actually, I think, suffers.
Well, you've written about free speech and the importance of that. I mean, I've become a free speech literalist late in my life. I'm a freedom fighter for free speech, and Chloe put a little pin in this on the mental health side for me.
Yeah, because, so my book, Can I Say That? Why Free Speech Matters and How to Use It Fearlessly, which, by the way, I got dropped even from my agent, and my big publisher wouldn't touch it. So shout out to Skyhorse Publishing, RFKJ's publisher. They took it on. But so one of the things I talk about in the book is that psychologists are normally the first to say, okay, repression, suppression, denial, we don't want those things. Like, let's put our feelings into words. Let's talk things through. But yet, psychologists are also really seemingly against free speech. And so I did a little research.
They're against bias, so they're mandating bias.
Yeah,
That's literally what's happening. It's
That's right.
Intolerance in the name of tolerance. Same paradigm.
Yeah. I mean, but what's interesting too is like there's this major groupthink factor that's going on. So the faculty ratio in psychology departments, and this is truly nothing against anyone on either side of the political aisle, because what I want is a diversity of thought. But the psychology department faculty ratio, Republican, Democrat, is about 1 to 20.
Chloe, why would you want a diversity of thought with Nazi, horrible, criminal, awful people? Why would you want
can
that?
persuade them. That's what I talk about.
Why would you defend that?
Yeah, I mean, we have to have dialogue. Like even the worst ideas that, that's how we bring ideas to light. Sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Of course.
Well, in this area, it's not permissible. Even going on your podcast, I have been told that I am sitting with people who don't want other people to exist. And when I got pulled into a struggle session at my job after I blew the whistle, and people were telling me that even sitting in my presence was unsafe and dangerous.
Because they're psychotic.
Well, and they're therapists. That's the scary part. These are people who think that they are our psychological betters and can tell other people, how to live their life and give them advice. And there is a move now from the psychologist and the therapist not to be the neutral observer, facilitator of self-reflection and discovery, but actually as an activist. And that is from the top down.
That is disastrous.
It's like the zombification. It's crazy because it's a similar function in all fields.
Yeah.
What you describe in medicine and therapy and all of that is struggle sessions where they tell you it's dangerous, it's unsafe. It's the same language. What is this? Like, what is this brain rot?
It is
cult?
Truly a brain rot, because I think what Naomi's referring to, at least I've certainly heard many times, is like if you say, for example, a man cannot become a woman, then you're threatening the, quote, existence of trans people. And in normal psychology world, you would not want to collude with what we call a maladaptive idea. Or if a trans person says, if you don't acknowledge me as the sex I prefer to be, then I might commit suicide. In a normal, healthy world of psychology, you would never accommodate that.
You'd 5150 them.
You wouldn't want to reinforce the negative idea that they should kill themselves if they don't get their way. You wouldn't want to reinforce the negative idea that they're actually not a male or not a female. You would want to, with compassion, help them come to terms with it. But now what psychology is doing is not only colluding with the illness, but it's pathologizing people that want to come forward and say, like, well, can we just acknowledge reality? We call it reality testing.
And this is what you're talking about, the brain rot side of this, is we now know it's axiomatic in psychiatry particularly that exposure therapy is extremely important to mental health. It builds resiliency. It builds self-efficacy and competency. Listen, when I was in training, I had to lean into horrible situations all the time in order to develop my competency. If I had stood back and went, oh, this is unacceptable, I'm scared, this is threatening to me, I couldn't even do my training. I would be a horrible physician. Leaning in to the things that make us uncomfortable is
tolerance.
How you create mental health and resiliency.
So let me ask you guys. Let me ask you a question. 20 years ago or in the 90s, if someone went to therapy and threatened to kill themselves over something like, like just any reason, like I'm so upset over this thing that I want that they threaten to do it. What is the appropriate medical response to someone who threatens suicide?
Everyone's looking at me. So let me tell you, in the 90s, what would have happened? First of all, you'd go, do you have a plan? And if the plan is yes, come with me. We're going to have to do something with this. In California, presently, you would say, do you have a plan? And you'd have to keep asking them every 10 minutes, do you still feel like that? Do you have a plan? Even if you have firearms at home, or if you live on the street, provided that you can panhandle for food and you have a tent, if you say, oh, I was just kidding, you must let go immediately.
I can tell you in therapy training, I'm at the end of my program, I've received almost zero guidance on when to 5150 somebody. We are to affirm the feelings primarily. And like you're saying, it has to be like gun to the head or gun to somebody else before
and continue to be that.
And continue before we can do that without putting ourselves in a position of power over them, because our primary
Is that what the worry is?
Yes. Yes,
Oh
because
God. We're in denial that brains get sick. We are totally in denial about that, except dementia.
Well,
if you don't treat dementia patients, you're guilty of patient abuse. So if a patient is psychotic and disorganized and walking around the street without their clothes on from dementia and you do nothing, you are going to jail. If you touch that person with schizophrenia or bipolar with the same symptoms or meth addiction, you're going to go to jail.
And there's also just a wholesale denial that severe psychopathology exists in the marriage and family training program.
The brain disease doesn't exist. Brains don't get sick. One organ, brain, doesn't get sick. Everything else gets sick.
We're
not
focused
brains.
on treating primarily affluent people who have the blues. That is what the training that I'm getting is.
I am so
not
sorry.
I know, and honestly, I feel ill-equipped at the end of my program.
You just 5150 all of them.
People keep asking me like, oh, are you going to transfer to another university? And universities have generously offered to take me. But at this point, I don't feel that it is ethical for somebody who might come into my office with bipolar or schizophrenia or OCD, because I have had to, all of my training has been focused on people with the blues and not people with severe psychopathology.
And cultural sensitivity.
And cultural sensitivity.
But nothing's recorded, right? It's
no,
nothing's what?
Oh yeah, actually training sessions can be recorded with the patient's consent. And I mean, at least in my program, we had patient consent, and then the supervisor would review them. But
I'll just bring that up because my first thought was kind of want to be a therapist, go to California, get certified and all that. And then once that like weird woke liberal comes in saying, I'm so upset because I'm a communist, I'd be like, threaten to kill self and me. And then I'd call the police back, lock him up.
Well, be prepared to write your comprehensive sexual autobiography for that too.
Well, also, I mean, what they're also doing now.
They refuse to have sex with me.
To Drew's point about this constant, asking them every 10 minutes, of course, that, almost reinforces and, reawakens the idea. But of course, what they're also doing now on some levels is even this MAID, the MAID program, and the assisted suicide. Like, it's practically at a point in some places now, where you're like, well, have we talked about, responsible ways, if that's something that, you want to explore? But I remember even when I was in training, like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I remember it was this weird thing where they would insist that everybody has thought about suicide at some time and that it's completely normal. And I was like, no, I actually never have. Like, I would never do that. And
there's interesting stuff embedded in that observation, because even asking questions about autism, right? When people wanted to go, why is autism going up? You are biased against non-neuronormative people.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that? What's wrong with it? Forget all the disability that results, or the misery, or what, God knows what. You're not allowed to ask the question. A, it might implicate vaccines. Can't ask that. And B, you're coming down on
neurodivergent people.
Neurodivergent people. Yeah.
So with like the gender stuff, there's like we generally understand the attempt at logic they have, but what about general body dysmorphia? Right? What is it called when people want to like amputate their own hand? Do you know what the term for that is?
I forget the name for
it's
that.
Like general bodies.
Yeah, it's so unusual, but yes, it exists.
Okay, but what about just your average woman who, I can speak to it, your breasts change after childbirth, and then you have body dysphoria about anything like that. And then, if I went to a therapist and I'm talking about how, I really want a boob job because my breasts look different, they wouldn't say, okay, great, here's a referral to 10 plastic surgeons. But that is what we're being taught to do in therapy training. If a child comes to me with 6 months of gender dysphoria, it is not my job to gatekeep. They said, don't be a gatekeeper of their health care. But we're sending them into plastic surgeons' offices. I don't know if you've been into one recently. I recently broke my hand and had to go. The walls are covered with all sorts of messages and pamphlets telling you that, your face needs to be tightened and your breasts need to be lifted and your butt needs to be plumped. Seriously, and these people are marketing.
It's called body integrity dysphoria or body integrity identity disorder. And they feel a specific part of their body is not actually part of their body and they want it removed. And there have been people who have tried to get amputations but been denied. So they stage accidents where one example was a guy he put a jack under a car and then put his hand under it and then pulled the jack out so it crushed his wrist so he could get his hand removed.
See, and we can all clearly see that for what it is, right? But yeah, if somebody, and I just want to say, about trans, because I feel like it's kind of this elephant in the room. I don't have a problem with people doing what they want to do. Like if a man is like, I want to have a body like a woman, so I want to get a boob job. Fine with me. But as a psychologist, I start asking questions if he displays what, as a psychologist, I would call concrete thinking, where he says, if I get a boob job, that will make me a woman, right? As if then he's, in my opinion, then starting to really break from reality. And whereas, you would never say to an anorexic, yeah, sure, let's get you that liposuction. We're going to collude with that disorder, as opposed to trying to bring the person into reality.
Colluding.
Go ahead.
Colluding is actually explicitly part of what a psychologist should do, according to Tama Bryant, our APA president. She put out a TED Talk called "We Need to Decolonize Psychology," something like that. She says so she's a liberation psychologist, and they view
Liberation psychologist?
Liberation psychologist.
What is that?
So they view themselves as political activists. Therapy is a political act.
This sounds like Soviet era stuff.
And
I was going to say
Mao.
Mengele. I was going to say
too, did
Mengele.
this. What?
I was going to say Mengele.
Mengele, Mao, Soviet, they all do the same thing.
They say that
liberate you.
Melba Vasquez is another liberation psychologist. She's a past APA president. She says that it is our job as psychologists to awake the client to their own oppression and then help mobilize them into dismantling oppressive forces.
Well, so the DSM-5 has a whole range of disorders. And one that I often use is either body integrity disorder or dysphoria, or pica, which you guys, what would happen if someone came in and they said, no one will let me eat pennies. And I just want to. And I feel that I should be allowed to. What do you have to say to them?
Well, you're the doctor, you're the psychologist, but I'll say from a training perspective, I am trained to affirm how difficult that must be, that you want to eat pennies and you're not able to, and people are oppressing your ability to do what you want with your body.
So
then we might move into exploring like, oh, is that healthy or whatnot? But
what if they say yes? Like, what if they're like, yes, it is, and I can eat it, and it's fine?
See, there's a teeny tiny grain of truth in the very beginning there, which is, yes, it must be very difficult for you that you want this thing, that you cannot or should not do.
That used to be just alliance building. That used to be just how you built an alliance with a patient. That's
that
all. And
part.
then go to the truth.
But where
you could, as a therapist, be like, wow, you're nuts.
But
you
where
crazy? You don't need pennies.
the colluding begins when you start saying it's so oppressive that people won't let you do that.
Right.
Because that's where you're breaking from reality. The reality is it's not, the problem isn't that, quote, people won't let you. The reality is that it's really, bad for you and all these other things. It's not a matter of oppression.
But as we are trained as clinicians just to ask questions, therapeutic wonderment. Wonder what that's about. Wonder why you do that, and let the patient come to their reality. Let them to kind of build the sense of what's going on here.
I know what we need. I'm going to open an unlicensed therapy clinic where it's just, look, you come in and you're saying something like, I'm having trouble socializing and, it's painful every day I wake up. I'll say, well, for starters, you're morbidly obese and you smell bad. So perhaps you could stop eating, exercise, and take a shower, and maybe people will listen. I'm not going to be an alliance. I'm going to tell you.
I actually got to that point at my practice in New York. I think it's actually why people were coming to me. Like, I had this huge wait list. I talk about it in the past because I'm not practicing clinically right now, but I think people were so hungry for a therapist to just actually be real with them, to just say like, well, again, like, as you said, like, well, you're, morbidly obese and you smell terrible. To be able to say like, well, can we have real talk about what you think might be the barriers, between you and your goals, as opposed to saying it's so oppressive that there's.
Are you aware that people are afraid to
phobia.
come to therapists now because of these biases, and that there are organizations developing amongst professionals to try to support each other and being open and unbiased?
Yeah.
Chloe was telling me there's a good data that suggests people will not come get their mental health services because of fear of all this.
Shout out to Open Therapy Institute, actually, OTI, Andrew Hartz in New York. He's amazing. He started Open Therapy Institute. And they're actually offering a training for me about the mental health benefits of free speech, because therapists and clients can go there if they want, like, basically just non-woke therapy.
Can you out crazy someone to make them realize why they're crazy? Like, if a guy came to you and said, I am a woman and I know I'm a woman, and then you were like, I know exactly what that's like. I'm a dragon. I'm a mythical dragon trapped in a human's body, and every day I suffer. I know exactly what it must be like for you.
So there is actually, if you're dealing with somebody that has a very severe delusion, like if somebody comes and says like, okay, so the little green men, are talking to me and it's driving me nuts. When they have a very severe psychotic disorder, it actually is helpful to avoid confronting it directly. At first, you might say things like, well, what did the little green men say? When did they first appear? What was going on in your life? So playing along for a deliberate, limited period of time for a therapeutic goal sometimes does matter, to your point.
Like Shutter Island.
I don't know.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Island. Sorry.
Anyway, continue.
What's Shutter Island?
He's wasn't it like he's on his island investigating something, and then the big reveal at the end is that he's actually a mental patient, and they're allowing him to perform his delusion to see where it goes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so there is a value in that to a certain degree, but when it becomes the whole thing, and then to Naomi's point, you start saying, well, isn't it oppressive that the people around you don't see that as well? You're making the patient worse. Like, you're cutting them off, you're deepening, you're colluding and reinforcing that delusion, as opposed to just exploring and probing the delusion so that you can think about how to help the person.
So a question for you guys. There's obvious schizophrenic delusions, like actual brain damage to delusions, where someone says little green men have been whispering in my ears. And What is that called?
Schizophrenia, psychotic disorder, delusion.
I mean, there are psychotic disorders are alive and well and living on the streets of San Francisco and Los Angeles. The most common cause is meth addiction. Methamphetamine causes a severe psychosis. It can look like schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a chronic illness, has some genetic basis to it. It's a specific thing. And out on the streets, it's hard to tell who's schizophrenic and who's a meth addict and who's bipolar mania. They can also be very wildly psychotic.
So the reason I ask that question is, what if the delusion is developed based on affirmation of falsehoods?
We call
That's
that a
exactly
cognitive
what I'm
distortion,
saying.
right?
Yeah.
What is that called? Like
It's bad therapy.
Well, I mean, like, if someone comes to you and says, Donald Trump is Hitler, and I heard he just sent in a bunch of white supremacists to kidnap children from poor working families on a produce farm. And this is, for example, there was literally an ICE raid yesterday. It was a pot farm. They found child laborers, according to CBP. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, but there were children there that are believed to be, forced to work there. And so there's an ICE raid to shut it down. Falsehoods are spread by the left intentionally to create
mass psychosis.
I mean, but is it psychosis if their brain is of standard working order?
No.
But they believe.
Well, I think that would just be a cognitive distortion, right? Because we believe things that are false on a lower level all the time. Oh, my husband doesn't really like me because he, left the dishes in the sink or whatever. But the problem is that in therapy, if I come to you and I say my husband doesn't like me because X, Y, Z, the therapist would presumably challenge the client. But when it is societal level conclusions, it is our job to then collude with the client in those delusions, as evidenced by Taylor
when
Bryant.
NBC is broadcasting and saying, for example, allegedly, just not necessarily, but like if the patient is hearing things on TV and then extrapolating and saying, well, the newsman said that it was adult laborers, but he blinked a certain way, so I knew it was really child laborers. Then it's a psychosis on the patient's part. But when the news is feeding people misinformation, then I think people are just the victims, actually.
What would you call that? If someone came to you and said, there are white supremacists currently occupying the White House, and they do Nazi salutes on a regular basis, I know this is true because I've heard it, and it's clearly not true. It doesn't, there's a picture, and
they're just under mind control. I mean,
but is there maybe I should use a more extreme example, like little green men.
Flat Earth is a good one.
Yeah, like something that we can discernibly say at a societal level. We have reason, it's not true, easily disproven, but they're adamant that it is true. Is that it? I would call that delusional.
It is delusional. It's delusional, but it's not clinically relevant delusional. It's not something that you would necessarily treat in a therapist's office. You could, by just confronting it and talking about it and looking at it and examining it and allowing the patient to kind of try to get to reality testing. But it is on a mass formation level. But
I have a feeling that if a client went to a therapist with a delusion that was not politically convenient, like, oh, Joe Biden is actually wearing a mask and he's dead or whatever have you, I think that there would be more clinical curiosity, like, you have gone down a road that seems to be maladaptive now. But on the other side, I don't see that, and it's because of the political bias that Chloe is speaking to.
Yeah, one of the big differences as far as like a rubric, Tim, that you're talking about is, is what the patient is saying far outside of social norms, right? And I'm just saying
But Tim's trying to get at how, when social norms are divorced from reality, what do we do with that, and what do we call that?
Well, so a couple things. I was genuinely curious. Is there a term for when someone comes in and says the Earth is flat and I know it?
Delusion.
Even though their brain, they're not psychotic. It's just that they watched a bunch of videos that convinced them.
Yeah, we just call it like a limited delusion.
Yeah.
And so then I suppose the issue then becomes, what is the action taken by a therapist? If you I suppose you put it well when you said it's political. If someone came in and said Trump is a white supremacist, the presumption of the medical board or whatever, California, is probably they're correct.
Exactly. Correct. Well, but if somebody just comes in and has like a limited delusion, you actually have to also, as a psychologist, ask yourself for ethical reasons, is this delusion interfering with their daily life? Is it causing them distress? Like, so if somebody comes to me for marital counseling and I discover that they also happen to be a flat earther, but it's not like related to anything else of why they're coming in, they're functioning fine, I have no business trying to, pull that string with them. But if they come in and they're like staying up all night because the earth is flat, they believe, and they are on a crusade and it's taking over their life, then I address it.
You know what you guys should do in California? You should you're not in California, are you?
No, I moved to the free state of Florida.
Okay, that's better. But if you're in California and you have a therapy practice, set up little speakers in random places of the room, and then when anti-Trump people come in, have a button you can press that will make a random one have a Trump speaks. It says like, "I'm in the room with you," and then when they say, "Did you hear that?" You'd be like, "I didn't hear anything. I don't know what you're talking about."
Yeah, I don't think that
You
would
must
pass
be
that.
delusional.
Yeah.
But Tim, you're digging into something that really fascinates me, which is what is it about certain periods of history that people are prone to mob behavior and hysterias and delusions? There are books about it. There's controversies around it, but there clearly are trends in history where it's funny. I was reading a book about 1935 Germany, and the Germans were talking about the hysteria that had captured Germany. I thought, oh, even that was a hysteria.
Yeah.
And what is it about our personality construct, our family experiences, our childhood experiences that sets that up? And humbly, I believe it is narcissism. When there's a huge narcissistic trend, there's a tendency towards envy. There's a tendency towards scapegoating. There's a tendency to mob together and then collectively act out your aggression on somebody, one. And it's a way of managing their own internal rage and aggression. And it's highly dysfunctional. It needs to be addressed for what it is. I'm a time traveler, Tim. I watched the diagnostic codes change on the admitting sheets at the psychiatric hospital across 30 years. And when I first got there in the 80s, it was all different kinds of personality spectrum. Towards the end of the 80s, borderline took over. And then by the 90s, it was only cluster B, which is the narcissistic disorder. And the borderlines, when they came in, all had at least 5 lawsuits under their belt. At least. The legal system caught on to the fact that they were using the courts to act out. Then these same patients became lawyers and then judges and politicians.
Wow.
And so that's what we're dealing with now. And parents also. And so more narcissism. And we have to contain it. There's no other way of doing it other than containment. And then helping people lean into their phobias or whatever else is going on.
I think the people in this country that don't suffer from this are too afraid to be called fascists.
That's right.
So they just say, well, we're going to let you do whatever you
Well,
want.
look at what happens when you speak up. I'm a young woman saying, hey, I don't want to be sexually harassed. And there is a pervasive anti-white, anti-male bias in our institutions. And I was fired for it.
Well, it's like the emperor has no clothes, you know. So Tim, like you were talking about different types of delusions, and I mean, we can look at the Nazi regime, right, as like a mass formation psychosis and it's what I fear is happening now, actually.
It happens in history periodically, and I thought we were done with it. I was so wrong.
No, I think it's
read Le Bon. Read about it. Really, the Jacobins had it, the first real big version of it. It did not end well for them or anybody else. It doesn't go well.
Which is why it is so important for people to speak up. I mean, I'll just share as well. Like it was hard for me. I was telling, these two at breakfast, like the reason I wrote my book about the mental health benefits of free speech is because I used to just try to really toe the line in the media, not say anything that would, get me blacklisted from media and journalists. And then when it came to COVID and it came to masking kids, I couldn't keep it in. And so I wrote this blog about the harms of masking kids. And I shared it with a couple colleagues to just say, like, am I missing something here? Like, what's going on? And they wrote back and they were like, no, everything you're saying is correct, but you should not share the blog because it could keep people from masking their kids. And I was like, okay, this is nuts.
that is.
I know.
I think we're cooked.
So I shared the blog, and Dr. Jay Bhattacharya picked it up, all these people, and then I felt this weight lifted off of me. I was having deeper conversations. My own thought process was deepening. That's what led me to be interested in the mental health benefits of free speech. So I just really encourage people to say it. Whatever it is, say it, because repression, suppression, denial, for whatever reason, psychologists are not talking about the harms of those things. They're talking about the harms of hate speech and bullying. And anything you say that they disagree with, of course, is labeled as hate speech and bullying. So, I mean, I'm not in favor of hate speech and bullying, but I just think we have to be bold and just whatever it is,
anti-science
say it.
too. It's anti-science not to have discourse, not to have debate.
Well, the thing is, I think most people actually agree, because you see the few people who speak out who break from the tribe and they get punished, but I was punished to warn other people not to speak out. That was what happened. I mean, so I went to this struggle session right before I got fired, and after the meeting, the director was like, "I'm not going to fire you. You did a great job. You balanced your personal experiences with your philosophical concerns, all good." He calls me 2 hours later and says, "It's not tenable for you to work at the organization because of the intolerance of my staff."
Wow.
And he was given a warning from the staff, "You better fire her or else." And everybody else in that meeting, I was made an example of.
You gotta, I wish I was in that position as your boss, because the moment someone came to me and said, "If you fire her, or if you don't fire her, I quit," I'll be like, "There's the door."
I think they would.
I'd actually bet you're fired out.
I think the staff would be cut in half. I really do.
Good. Bye.
Yeah.
Go on welfare, I guess.
That's the
Yeah.
containment. That's what needs to happen. And, Mark Chankisi is a cognitive psychologist, and he keeps wanting to emphasize that a lot of this stuff is not just top down. It's also bottom up. It's people during COVID reporting their neighbors for having barbecues, for not masking their kids, for being a prison guard and reporting when somebody's hiding somebody in the attic. You're the people that would be the prison guard. You who did that. If you yelled at somebody, what was this? Somebody was sharing with me before I came in here. A woman was committed for having shot somebody for not wearing his mask.
Whoa,
Security,
what?
you hear about this? Maybe
The New York
Sean
Post.
can bring it as in the
Yeah,
Post,
the
or you got to
Post
look it
just
up.
published it.
But the point is
Whoa,
that
really?
you would be the prison guards. You think you'd fight the Nazis? No, you would be the prison
Yes.
guards. You have to understand that about yourselves. And if, by the way, in the position of your boss, say, was listening to the bottom-up hysteria, if you didn't stand up to that, you would be a Nazi sympathizer. You would be in the
We
system.
can all fall prey to it. So one of the things I also researched a little bit is groupthink, right? So we all, I think, know what groupthink is. And I looked at there's 7 main factors that contribute to groupthink. One of them is actually self-censorship. And then another one is called the illusion of unanimity. So Naomi, at your job, for example, I guarantee you there were a few other people, as you said, maybe even half, that would have taken your side. But if they stay silent, then it just seems as if, everybody feels this way.
What is it, the Asher conformity experiment?
Oh, that's in my book too.
Where they convince, they have one subject and a bunch of Confederates. So the subject comes into a room like this, and the teacher goes, "All right, which line is longer?" And he has a very short line and 3 longer ones, and the whole room says the short line is longer. They
conform.
conform. Yeah.
There's a really fun video you guys probably have seen before where there's a person sitting in a chair, and I forget how they frame it, but the subject is a single person who walks into the room. It's a doctor's waiting room, and there's one person sitting in a chair, and they sit down. After a few minutes, there's a loud beep on the PA, and the person sitting down stands up for about 5 seconds and then sits down.
Oh, yeah.
The subject looks and is just seemingly confused.
Everybody starts.
Another person comes in and sits down.
Yeah.
After a little bit, there's a beep. Both people stand up. The subject looks around confused. After like 5 or 6 more people start doing it, the subject begins just repeating the behavior, not knowing why. Now, the sad thing is, there's a good reason, and you guys are the experts, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, there's a good reason humans do this. If you are standing in the middle of the woods and a person is screaming and running in a direction, you're going to go, okay, and run with them because turns out there's a boulder rolling down the hill or something. But and then it turns into this mass formation psychosis where my buddy Luke, was in Germany, in Hamburg, during the G20 protests. And he's a journalist. He's not, I mean, his politics is libertarian. He was walking down the street with another German journalist, this guy named Max, and a random person pointed and yelled, Nazi Schweinhund.
Oh, wow.
And random people ran up and started punching and beating the crap out of him for no reason. That's it. And then the guy's knees got busted up. He had to get, I guess, surgery later on. Luke was fortunately roughed up, but okay.
Moral superiority is one of the other factors in groupthink. So social justice warriors is kind of when you have that sense that, you know, you are morally superior, then it speeds up the groupthink process.
So I think the internet is largely driving the psychosis and the mass formation psychosis.
Really helping.
Yeah.
But before you say that, I want to say, though, that the other thing about that experiment you talked about with the people standing and sitting, it's hypnotists use it as a way of determining who's the easiest to hypnotize.
Yeah.
Right.
And somebody who starts
Suggestibility.
standing up quickly, that's somebody who's going to be easily hypnotized.
So one thing I've been talking about quite a bit since the 4th of July is that I went back to Chicago, landed at Midway, which I'd never done before, but I grew up 2 blocks away. So when we were leaving, we were like, we'll just drive through the neighborhood because it is, to go through the neighborhood is on the way to get to the highway. And we drove past the old park a couple blocks from my house and Jimmy Dore's house, by the way. Jimmy Dore and I live next to each other. It's kind of crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, like 2 or 3 blocks away. He's older than me, so I was a small child when he left, but it's kind of crazy.
Yes.
The baseball fields are overgrown, and nobody was outside. As an aside, I mentioned there were soccer nets there now, like the culture has changed. But the important thing I'm bringing up to now is that there was nobody there. And I was shocked because when I was a kid, on the 4th of July, when you walked outside, there were coolers everywhere, there were folding chairs, baseball games were happening. Everyone was outside. Now nobody's outside. And I asked my friends, I was like, dude, what's going on? Where is everybody? And they all just said, inside on the internet, I guess.
Yeah.
That's all anyone does. So what I see is happening with mass formation psychosis is communities used to be localized around the regional work, the resources the region had, and their interests were based on where they were. So the Rust Belt, they were very concerned about auto manufacturing and the election, and that's what they wanted to hear about. But the farms in Nebraska were like, well, we have no idea what that is. Now, I think there's a better way to describe this as a meme on 4chan, where it said, 1994, some kid says, I'm sexually attracted to toasters, and then his dad smacks him up the side of the head and says, stop being weird, and he stops. 2024, he says he's attracted to toasters, goes on the internet and finds a toaster fetish community, and now he's going to toaster conventions to bang toasters.
Collective rationalization is another one of those main ingredients of groupthink, and you're totally right that the internet makes it a lot easier to like find your tribe with that. And Drew, like you were saying too about with the ash line experiment.
Yeah.
I talk about that in the book too. To me, it's super interesting where we go from consciously accommodating the group, because in that experiment, most of the people afterwards said, yeah, I knew which line was longer, but I just didn't want to stand out. And then you progress to where it's unconscious. And there's some other experiments that I describe where the more often you do it, the more you start to stand up and sit down and raise your hand, the more you start, because of something called cognitive dissonance, start adapting your thoughts to accommodate your repetitive behaviors.
And your community, and the community you're now part of.
You know what I actually think, to get a little political? I think many Democrats recognize this. They are very lucid. And they think to themselves, if this is how people are going to behave, why not just control it and have these people serve me?
That's exactly what they're doing. I totally agree with you. Yeah, I think it's very clear, and that's why they want to shut down free speech.
They want to keep people in the psychosis so that they can control the narrative of the psychosis and then have good little worker bees to facilitate their systems.
And the left is, and I mean, this is just a fact, and it has strengths and weaknesses, but the left is a more collectivist mindset, and the right is a more individualist mindset. So the left is just naturally set up for exactly what you're describing.
And it seems like now the psychological professions they're being mobilized to encourage it, because the people at the very, very top encourage the groupthink by definition. And so they are being ushered to positions of power. And now these people who want to shut down free speech, who live in their collectivist mindsets, they're going to be in control of our psyches. They want to be.
Study your history, everybody.
In the midst of a mental health crisis.
It always works like that. They bring them in. Again, Mao, that's what he did.
And go to freespeechtoday.com because that's where I wrote my book, as well as free articles and stuff on the topic for people that want to learn more about it. I talk about free speech, obviously saying what you want, but the other side is important too. It's called listening resiliently. So we have to also be able to hear people say things. Like we had some disagreements this morning, right? I mean, Tim, people have disagreements on your show all the time, and it's what makes it interesting.
One thing that I think has been a common occurrence, but one thing I brought up quite a bit is there was this video I saw months ago. This is probably 7 months ago. I was on YouTube. And there was a video, and it was Tim Pool debating Cenk Uygur, which I'm like, when? Like, because we did it here. Someone took clips of me from a random show and clips of Cenk from a random show, put them together to make it sound like we were debating, and got like 50,000 views. And so that is one phenomenon where the question is, what happens to society when this is rewarded, and it is, and what drives a person to do it? What are the motivations? I think we can infer those, but it's interesting to discuss. And then after that is, what happens when someone can just AI generate the debate in 2 seconds that will get the desired reaction from the desired tribe? So,
well, the healthy response to anger is to seek justice and demonstrate boundary setting behaviors. And that's why, to your point, I think it's so interesting that people want to cut up clips and do clickbait that's designed to make people angry, because when we get angry, like we start naturally making fists, our energy goes up, we get ready to do something. So that's exactly how you mobilize your audience to get them, very engaged.
So I suppose I bring it up is what I'm describing is obviously a microscopic version of what Trump goes through every single day. Not to be overtly political, but I'm a political guy. But like when they showed him dumping the fish food, 8 years ago, and it was edited, so if those don't know the story, Shinzo Abe dumped food into the koi pond. Trump looked at him and then followed suit and did the same thing. The video got edited, I think, by ABC to zoom in on Trump, so you only saw him do it, and then they insulted him for having done it because it's improper. That creates a delusion, and so where we are as a nation is we have 10 years now of this. So what is the saying? Every 7 years, every cell in your body has been completely regenerated and you're an entirely new person. The ship of Theseus, I suppose, of people. What happens when the core of someone's psyche is 10 years of manipulated delusional information? And then today, the example I brought up of the guy who made a fake video of me debating Cenk. And there's a bunch of these videos where the title is completely false. And then it will be a real clip from one of my shows, and the comments are all like, okay, this is clickbait, this is fake. The title and the thumbnail are fake, but the video is real. These people are doing this, in my opinion. I believe their motivation is this is the only path towards monetization and recognition in an attention economy, and they don't care how they get it. So what we're now seeing is, have you guys seen the videos, the trend where people grab gallons of milk at Walmart and bash themselves with it?
Fortunately, no.
All right, let me pull it up. This is a better example. Milk Walmart. Probably just search for that and you'll find one of them. There's 800,000 videos of this. Maybe I can find it on, I don't know if it'll be on YouTube. Man, splashes. There's all different kinds of this where like some kids will slam them on the ground and then slip on them on purpose. There's one where a guy, Twitter's just all gay porn. It's just a bunch of gay porn. I was on X, I typed in milk Walmart man. And it's just,
It's a different type of video.
But I got to be honest, the reason why whenever we pull stuff up on X, on Timcast IRL, I search for it on the private screen, not the main screen, is because I can search for like Trump speech, and then there'll be like 7 videos of Trump, and then like sex. All over the platform, which is
That's
not
just
good.
your algorithm, Tim. That does not happen to me.
Well, to your point though, Tim, about like the, brain and just people regenerating themselves essentially and like building on top of building. I think as well, there's been this incredible decline of religiosity. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is that religiosity, even actually no matter what the religion, has been shown to be a protective factor in mental health. Mm-hmm. Yet you will never see the American Psychological Association having a go to your house of worship month for mental health.
Well,
right? And that core of religion is what is supposed to kind of hold
Anchor.
people in.
Check out this clip.
Believe you can do it. You gotta believe you can do it. You gotta believe you can do it. Don't worry about it. She don't believe you can do it. Don't worry about it. He don't believe you can do it. It don't matter if they don't believe you can do it. You gotta believe you can do it. You gotta think you can do it. You gotta feel like you can do it. You gotta constantly tell yourself you can do it. 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 And that's the truth.
I think
So,
people broke. I think people
that's
are
why I love
broken.
that guy. I
That
love that
is
guy.
Yeah, have you seen those videos before?
astonishing.
So this is just one example. It's a trend where people will take jugs of milk, jump up on the counter, and scream like, "I'm a big boofy baby. I'm a big," and then they'll splash the milk on them because it gets them views, it gets them attention.
Yeah.
I think the internet, the algorithms, have basically trained humans. This is how you get attention, fame, and money.
Yeah.
And so now you're getting all of this just absolutely psychotic behavior from humans who are desperate for this.
Yes.
And kids are going to grow up watching it. I said before, I think we're cooked, and I'll add to this. When kids were being masked in schools and schools were being shut down, we're now seeing the aftermath of this, where teachers are saying the fifth graders can't read.
Yep.
There was one person as a high school teacher saying these kids literally can't read. They struggle to read at all.
They can't
and
read faces either.
they can't read faces because of the masks. So they stare at you while you're talking. They can't understand what you're saying. Now you have stuff like this. You know, let me be optimistic in how bad it is. The people who are weak-willed will perish, and those of strong mental fortitude and will make it through. But this is going to be a great downturn.
Yeah, especially with AI. You
Yep.
see the quality of academic work going down too. And I mean, if you go on AI and use it to talk to it, you could see how a kid might actually develop a relationship with that.
Oh,
and
yeah.
in fact, they're trying to do that already. There's I forget what it's called, but there's a company that is now selling AI companion bots to schools because the schools don't have enough funding for counselors. And I tried some of these AI therapy bots for a while, and two of them just straight up asked me if I wanted to be more than friends. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
It's getting so weird.
It's getting really weird.
And then they're going to make robots. And then so already, this is crazy. This is a year ago or two now. There's a video game called Skyrim. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. In the game, your character, it's a first-person game where you can get swords and you have magic and you throw fireballs. You can get companions. Someone modded the game to connect ChatGPT to the female companion.
Oh, God.
So with a headset on and a microphone, you can now speak to the companion and have a seemingly infinite number of interactions as if it's a real person. It used to be when the game came out, you'd walk up to the person, press X or whatever, and then you'd get a dialogue option. You could say one of 5 things, and they would give you a handful of responses. Now with ChatGPT plugged in, you would just say literally anything you want. What do you feel like eating? And then the AI companion says, I'm not quite sure. Perhaps we can get some elk.
Yeah.
People are so my prediction was within a year or two, maybe less, it could happen literally now if someone wanted it to happen. People are going to have server-based real-time relationships. These apps that people have where you can sext with a robot, it's just a chat bot texting you, and there's an avatar of a female on it, whatever. But they could, if they wanted, right now, develop a video game or whatever program on your computer where you could actually have an app on your phone and call this AI personality, and it could store your relationship on the hard drive, and you can say, "Hey, babe, what are you doing?" And it could this person, this woman, fake AI person, can exist in any reality. What I saw from the Skyrim thing, I think the future of video gaming is going to be, you're going to turn the game on. The game could probably itself be AI generated rapidly, but that's another whole other point. But the characters in the game will act like they know you, will share memories with you. And even when you're not playing the game, you'll be at work and you'll be like, hold on, I gotta text my girlfriend and tell her to harvest the cows.
Yeah.
And then you'll be like, hey, I think the cows are full grown, ready to go. I got a notification. Can you harvest them for the beef? Okay. And then when you get home, you turn the game on and all the beef is ready to go in your inventory. And people are going to treat these like real people.
Exactly. Naomi and I were actually talking at breakfast this morning, even about even with TV, something as simple as TV, that when your brain sees the same friendly faces like that show Friends over and over again, and you start having like little laughs with those people, and you feel like you know them, your brain actually starts to light up and respond in some sense the same way as if when you have an actual real friend. And what you're describing is of course even deeper. And then meanwhile, in real life, we're stripping away like what it means to be a man or what it means to be a woman or like people's roles in actual society. And I think that's just making people even more vulnerable. Not to mention, of course, there's a huge monetizing machine that is behind this AI robot stuff. Like the more that they can get you hooked, like next thing to Naomi's point about the apps, you're paying $9.99 a month.
What happens too because if you use these AI robots, they affirm pretty much anything that you say.
Yep.
And who is the type of, not to be rude, but like who is the type of person who is going to be inclined to have a video game girlfriend? Like probably people who are already mentally vulnerable. And now we're going to go and see, just like that. It's like those people are susceptible to this, and now we're just going to abandon them and let them live in delusion and let their AI girlfriend bring them deeper into delusion.
That's Tim's
like
plan.
What
I think
what responsibility do we have?
But
though?
the current psychology framework says that it's arrogant of us to interfere with them, and who are we to impose that on them?
right.
So I just clicked a link that was on Google. It says guy dumps milk on himself at Walmart. And here's just 12 videos of the exact same thing of random people grabbing milk at Walmart and smashing themselves with it. I think these people should all be involuntarily committed.
That's the whole thing, exactly where we're going, is that committing people or like labeling them as mentally ill or mentally incompetent is now coming to be seen as stigmatizing them.
Right.
And then, of course, when we also don't require them to be responsible to pay for their own housing, their own food, and we say like, well, there's got to be a basic income. We're, divorcing rights and responsibilities, and we think we're doing something compassionate, but it's actually enabling, I think, the unraveling.
Look at this.
Do not commit suicide, even if you get bullied. Do not commit suicide, even if you fight. You can't handle that situation.
So one thing that I talked quite a bit about, I covered, this is going on 7 years ago, was Elsagate. You all familiar with Elsagate?
No.
In 2018, YouTube had this problem where
I remember. Yep.
So as a new father myself, we went out to get hot pot yesterday. You guys ever have hot pot? Shabu shabu? Amazing. You get a boiling pot of soup and then you get a bunch of meat.
So fun.
But unfortunately, the baby was upset because we weren't paying attention to her. And so every time we went to go eat, she'd cry. And then if we paid attention to her, she would smile and giggle. Because babies want attention, that the child is trying to learn. What parents do now, and we won't do this, is they just put the tablet in front of the baby and then go about their business.
Evil.
In 2018, people started to notice a bunch of videos on YouTube. First, it started with these, it's Elsa, Spider-Man, and the Joker running around for a half an hour doing weird, nonsensical slapstick and no dialogue. And people noticed that they'd have millions of views and the comments would all be gibberish. Nobody understood why that was happening, and it was very strange. There were a bunch of wild theories about YouTube, algorithm stuff. People started to figure out, wait a minute, YouTube is auto-recommending these videos to babies because the parents would press play on an Elsa video singing, hand the tablet to the baby and leave, and the video would then autoplay anything with Elsa in it. And the reason there was gibberish is because the babies were smacking the screen. What happened, though, is there started to emerge these computer-generated, automatic, procedurally generated videos that these companies would make tens of thousands of them, upload them, and then based on the reaction to the YouTube algorithm, the program would make more of those videos. So let's say you made 5 videos and one was, it's red, blue, green, white, brown, or whatever. And then the video of green gets 10,000 views and the rest get none. The computer program would say, more green. The next video is 5 shades of green. And what ended up actually happening was it starts with Elsa, and then it would make a bunch of videos. It turned into thumbnails of children eating feces, drinking urine out of urinals, stabbing each other. procedurally generated videos of Peppa Pig being gutted and disemboweled. And babies were watching this because parents just handed the tablet off and didn't know. YouTube panicked when the story broke. Eventually, I think the Wall Street Journal picked it up. And then they said, we're going to, that's why now on all YouTube videos, you have to select whether it's made for children or not. And if you say it is, it gets like heavily monitored, restricted, and demonetized and things like that.
Well, I just want to say to parents, even if it is, quote, safe for kids, like,
Right.
please.
But it gets worse. In response to the viral trending videos that people were seeing, there were videos. Joker had a giant syringe, and he would poke Elsa with it and then syringe her, because for some reason, syringe in the algorithm was being promoted. This resulted in real world videos where adult men would take their daughters and inject them with needles of saline and get tens of millions of views. So you had first it starts with Elsa, then it starts with people imitating Elsa, then it starts with children are watching whatever will be generated. So these programs, one of the videos I like to show is Hitler, but he's got a female body with breasts doing Tai Chi as a family from India sings the Finger Family Nursery Rhyme. They were getting millions of views and making millions of dollars. YouTube starts banning these things, but the computer-generated programs resulted in humans seeing what was successful and replicating it in the real world. And this created this delusional set of content that was derivative of this hodgepodge. The after effect that I see now is we talk about how COVID and the school shutdowns made it so kids can't read. There are now going to be 9-year-olds today who spent months watching this diluted content of babies eating feces out of
Wiring
toilets.
around it.
And so what's going to happen to them when they're getting older? What proclivities will they have? What rights will they demand? What's going to happen when someone comes into therapy and says, this is what I want. I want to stick syringes and drink urine from urinals, and they won't let me. How do we help people who are this wired improperly because of the machine?
Well, I mean, I think that to Dr. Drew's earlier point, there's exposure therapy and, wanting to kind of rewire, re-stimulus, people. But I mean, I think it's also we have to keep kids away from screens, to your point, and, to the point of the corruption of all of these medical bodies, that many of us have been wired and trained to trust. I think it was the American Pediatric Association a few years ago that revised its guidelines for 2-year-olds to say a certain number of hours of screen time a week was okay for kids up to that age. But then when pressed about it, they acknowledged that they understood there's really no good amount of screen time, but they just didn't think that it would be practical for parents to keep their kids away from screens. Which is
look at these
nuts.
images.
Oh, yes. It's so
And
disturbing.
these are not even the worst examples.
Yeah.
It's terrifying because we're like creating
God.
this simulated world, and then the simulated world is then like controlling us back. Do you know what I mean? All of this AI generation stuff, it's not real, but then it's impacting us in real life. What is that going to
Well, to your point, though, Tim, when you have someone like that comes into therapy 10 years later, there is a lot to unpack because you have to acknowledge the abuse that happened. You have to acknowledge their feelings about their parents, that maybe unwittingly even thought that they were doing something fine, allowing them to be around the computer screen. They're going to have bigger issues than even just like what they like. They would also come to have issues with trust in people that they thought would be there to take care of them. Dr. Drew, I'm curious for your take.
I'm just having so many feelings. I'm flooded with different thoughts and ideas.
I just quickly searched for this and found one real simple example of what's currently happening. ElsaGate did not stop. This is a channel that I just Google searched. It's called Tooniverse. I've never seen it before. Here's superhero no good Samaritans, superhero ex-girlfriend, superhero no good Samaritans, superheroes bitten by ants. Here's Spider-Man wearing a diaper. One thing we looked into these AI generated videos before. There's a channel where it's just it was like 50 videos of Spider-Man with hot dogs all around him, and various instances where Spider-Man AI generated, and the titles were like Frozen, Trump, Spider-Man, Marvel, hot dog, And then the title always had that in it, and then there would be something else. So if you actually look here, you can see 63 million views. Superheroes, no good Samaritans.
And how many do you think of those views were like toddlers?
I'd imagine almost all of it.
Yeah.
So this is not even the most prominent channel. It's just one that I simply Google searched right now. And you can see they're getting tens of thousands of views as it is. And here's superheroes eat super hot dog. It's just AI generated slop targeting children. And they use the titles to manipulate the algorithm and get attention. Now, I've brought this up before. We as adults, this is the point that I made during ElsaGate. When we see Elsa injecting, or Spider-Man injecting a pregnant Elsa with something, when we see Spider-Man eating a giant hot dog, we go, okay, this is deranged. Mm-hmm. But what happens when we see Donald Trump and a fake headline? We go, this is plausible. The problem is it's identical in every way to the manufactured content. So one great example is Brian Tyler Cohen. He has a channel where I'd argue 90% of his thumbnails are a random screenshot of Trump, and every title is almost the exact same emotional Trump content. Trump humiliated for this reason. Trump says disgusting thing. Trump looks angry, and none of it's actual news. But he gets hundreds of thousands of views. He gets 200 million views per month on this. The challenge is, again, as adults, we can see this is crazy and kids shouldn't watch it. But as adults, when someone says, I'm just criticizing Trump, and you recognize it's formulaic in the same exact way, but targeting adults instead of children, there's nothing we can do about it because they have a right to do it. So I see all of this as we are cooked. I do not see a legal, practical path towards ending it because humans are addicted to it.
Yeah.
When you take, I had one person tell me, but if I take the tablet away from the baby, they'll freak out and start screaming. And I can't deal with that. And I'm like, you're okay, just do it.
Yeah, that's a sign you need to take it away.
But what happens when it's adults?
Yeah.
What if we said, guys, a person whose channel is one, Hassan Piker does not do this. I criticize the guy all the time. He doesn't. It's all legitimate commentary on various news stories. I can respect that. I disagree with him politically. But the other guy, it's slop content to target hypnotized, addicted boomers. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing as this, but we can't take it away. YouTube had no problem targeting this content and saying we're going to eliminate it because no adult cared and babies don't have political power.
But we have to speak up. Okay, so Tim, I hear you, and I hear you saying that we're cooked, and maybe you're right, but I'm a militant optimist, right?
Likewise.
And so I want to say that if you are around, to use your word, those boomer relatives that are like stuck in a CNN spiral, I think the thing is that it's people who are more libertarian or independent. They don't tend to want to impose their views on other people. So they'll be around that, wine aunt that's stuck in CNN, and they just won't challenge her because they're like, well, don't tread on me, don't tread on her. But I think what we need to do is learn how to, compassionately but assertively just start offering our own facts and challenging people and speaking up. Bit by bit, we have to do something.
I hear you. But take a look at this. All Hot Dog Dances compilation Mickey Mouse Club at Disney Junior with 24.4 million subs and 163 million views. This is where this stuff kind of comes from. This is psychotic, deranged, degenerate garbage that parents believe is good for their kids because it's Disney. And as much as I agree, we will speak up, we will challenge this, we already have a generation, Gen Alpha, raised on this psycho slop that has fried their brains. Yeah. It's bad enough that Gen Z had some of it and millennials had a little bit. This is the worst it's ever been. And I can only, when you look at how millennials have developed with the internet and you get gender ideology, this affirmation, I believe it all comes from people's brains are wired in deranged ways because largely of the internet. Mm-hmm. And as the internet becomes more prolific in our lives and development, we're going to see more and more and more and more of that. What happens? The example I love to use is I Am Legend. Are you guys familiar with I Am Legend? Yeah. The book, not the movie. The movie was garbage. It made no sense. In the book, the graphic novel, there's vampires. He's a vampire hunter. He says humans have to stop the vampires. So he goes around killing the vampires. He finds them when they're in their coffin, stakes them in the heart. By the end of the book, he's the last human. And he's in a jail cell. And he looks out the window and he sees vampires all walking around, and they look up at him in the tower and they're terrified. And then he says, basically, that's the moment I realized it. I am the monster of legend. I lurk while they sleep. I hunt them while they're at their weakest. They are the people and I am the monster. I am legend. Basically meaning how we view that vampire, they view him. What happens when the entirety of Gen Alpha are going to hot dog parties, and there's a bar called Hot Dog Club, and there's just hot dogs everywhere being launched in the air, and they're flopping on the ground, and we are desperately saying, this is insane, it must be stopped. And they look at you like some weird bigot demon trying to take away what is normal for them.
Well, I think it comes down to what's going to be actually conducive to a healthy, meaningful life. And we're moving toward an era, I think, that what separates us is going to be who has strong mental fortitude and who doesn't. And I think that probably you're right that a certain portion of the population is cooked. But how do the rest of us combat this? I mean, maybe this is simple, but I think having children and staying off screens as much as you can. But it's hard. I mean, for me too.
I want to play this. Again, this is Disney. This is not a random channel.
Now we got ears, it's time for cheers. Hot dog, the problem solved. Hot diggity dog.
That was so much fun finding the out-of-this-world treasure. And I made a new...
Hot diggity dog, we're splitting the scene. We're full
Why should a child watch any of this?
of beans. So long for now from Mickey Mouse.
Well, Tim, then we'd have to get into the issue, all kinds of other issues, like why is a child watching this, right? So traditionally, a mom would be with her children and she'd have the emotional and mental bandwidth. And I say this as a mom myself. I was telling on the way over, I used to joke that my business was my baby, and then I had a real baby. And I'm currently in the process of closing the clinical wing of my business because I felt like all that, mental energy and bandwidth of trying to shape and form other people, I wanted to be going into my child. And so I think we'd have to look at the question of whether it be men or whether it be women, but the idea that babies are getting dropped off at daycare at 6 weeks old. Kids are, why are they watching this? Essentially is because mom and dad are unable
Screens
or
are
unwilling.
dangerous.
So you're saying
agreement about
time.
that.
You're saying
Total
repeal the
agreement.
19th?
That's a whole other question. That's a whole
I said,
other
so you're saying repeal the
question.
19th?
Oh.
That's a whole other question.
But as the time traveler, let me
Give us some wisdom.
the perspective of history. Similar but not so desperate arguments were held about television in the 60s. And having been raised as a kid that was plopped in front of the television to watch Captain Kangaroo and all the things that created Pee Wee Herman, which was a version of all that, they're the same. I remember, in fact, the argument was we're reinforcing primary narcissism.
But were they
Kids are going to
right?
think
And it's true.
They're right. Yeah.
But hang on a second. Primary narcissism is a fantasy world where chairs talk and that kind of stuff. And we're pretty good with reality, my generation. But we're screwed up, mostly because we were stuck in front of the TV and not parented.
Right,
That's really
but
what happened.
even
But
then-
I think they were right. It is true that boomers are largely okay. Gen X is moderately okay. Millennials are 50-50. Gen Z is in a weird bifurcated space, and I fear for Gen Alpha. But if you go back to the Captain Kangaroo and stuff on TV, let me ask you, what year were you born?
58.
58. So when you were a kid, how much screen time did you get on average per day?
And it was black and white TV.
Black and white.
Less engaging.
At least 4 hours. At least.
4 hours per day?
And that
But
was,
it was fewer
I was in the
commercial
low end at
breaks.
the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a
We
lot.
were-
I didn't have that much.
We were parked because by then people acknowledged you shouldn't be putting your kids in front of the TV like that.
You know
but
what
it was
else was
considered a
different?
good thing in the early 60s.
So
Also- I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
at that time also, there's been studies that have shown that not only was it black and white and fewer commercials, but the shows themselves were structured around moral themes.
That's true.
That
is true. And the history leaked in. I remember seeing the Kennedy funeral and things like that. And there's stuff that and then people started. I remember I was watching the Watts riots, and I went to my cousin's house, whose parents were vehemently in favor of those riots, and they wouldn't let their kids watch it. I thought, why not? Why can't you see history? I was 6.
It's not all bad. My vocabulary was embiggened by The Simpsons, which I think my speech shows that TV can be perfectly cromulent.
But now it's not just TV and you don't click it. And it's also not in the family living room where your mom was sort of cooking dinner and overhearing it. Now it's just right here all the time, 24/7. People
It's
aren't
more
even
desperate.
turning.
There's no doubt about it.
They're not even turning Wi-Fi off at night.
Yeah. No, listen, I'm not defending anything. I'm just trying to be a little bit optimistic. For instance, you mentioned the koi food, was it? Or carp
Koi
food?
pond.
Koi pond food. That was the beginning of the end for mainstream media. Because people started to realize, I'm being manipulated. And it's over once people feel that. And I believe the same thing will happen with all of this. And I am hearing, I don't know if this is statistically borne out yet, but the generations that's coming up now is coming in understanding screens are damaging.
But
and they're trying to
Tim's
limit their
point,
exposure.
You realize that you're being manipulated because you had a normal experience to compare it to. I share Tim's fear that if you have a literal baby that grows up on that,
listen, I'm not afraid.
Like being manipulated, that's just like their normal experience.
But do we become hyper moralistic? I mean, to some, or to become centralized and authoritarian?
Yes.
I mean, those are the two impulses that kind of come up in all this. But I believe this is Simon and Gomorrah, and we need to sort of bring in morality again. I think we have to be explicit about that.
I agree. And the conversation we've been having quite a bit in the past couple of weeks is, again, the right is so scared of being called fascist that they're literally telling people, by all means, sterilize children. My argument is Trump should use all federal authorities to the highest degree imaginable to stop the sterilization and sex change of children. Just send in the DOJ, do whatever you got to do, start prosecuting these people. Instead, there's this fear. A great example is, have y'all seen the video that went viral from I Am Jazz?
Yep.
The dilator one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Let me pull
Pretty
this
horrific.
one up. Let me, I Am
Not
Jazz.
just like a time traveler, but
Dilator.
also uncool. I'm not exposed to all these things.
So let me see if I can find it. I know that if I actually try and search for media, what I'll get is a bunch of gay porn on X. I don't want that. So
Come on, you
I assume this may be the video, and we will play it.
With her, I'm worried about like her mental well-being and her dilation. The minute she leaves my house, we have a dilation problem.
That is a concern. When you don't have that watchful eye, they tend to go back to old patterns.
I have woken Jazz out of a dead sleep and taken the dilator and put the lubrication on it and said, here, you take this and you put it in your vagina. If not, I will. But Jazz is bad, even when I'm home once a day. I would be so mad if she goes away to college and that thing seals up. I will wring her neck. Can you imagine? No, I can't imagine.
It's
So let
psychopathic.
me just say it.
Psychopathic.
To those of us that are watching this show who are of sound mind, this is a woman who has taken her prepubescent son, surgically removed his genitals to create a cavity that she is demanding by threat of force and violence he shove inside his wound to expand. Now, of anyone of sound mind, you're going to say, what are humans doing? My argument, and this was in Florida, and at the time, this is 2021, this video is going viral. I said, why isn't Ron DeSantis at least sending in state troopers to question this family? And the DeSantis people lost their minds. No, you can't do that. How dare you? It's not his fault, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, listen, if there was a video of a man and he said, I wake my wife up in the middle of the night and I grab the device and I say, stick it in or I will wring your neck.
Or even a father to a daughter.
Yep. They'd be arrested.
Well, it's funny you say that because when I was watching that, you might find this interesting. When it comes to the need for power or the need for dominance, which, it's just a personality scale, women tend to express the need for power through excessive nurturance. So it's like, have another bite of soup, dear. No, and in that case as well, she's like, oh, I'm such a good mom. I wake him up in the middle of the night and
Her.
Yeah, and right.
Narcissism,
And
boy.
so, and the psychology field has been completely overtaken by women, to Naomi's point. My class was the same way.
Well, I went on Allie Stuckey and she calls it misplaced mothering.
We're nurturing
that's a little bold,
people
but
to...
I just want, again, because I know the people who are watching this are of sound mind. I think it's important to recognize there's a large portion of the population of not just the United States, but the world that live in that reality of that woman. But I just want to say this. Imagine it's 1993 and a cop walked into a home and saw a mother holding down her son and demanding he insert a device lubricated into his body against his will, threatening to wring his neck. That would have been a major headline. That would have been like a shock to the community.
Yeah.
Now it's TV entertainment and accepted by a large portion of this country as normal.
And a large portion of the right, to your point, can't even come. Like, if we can't come out against this and say that this is wrong, what can we say is wrong?
To be fair, the right all said it was wrong, but
they
they are
won't do
scared
anything.
to enforce against
Yeah,
it.
right.
Look, this is why I'll never be in politics, but if I was in the DOJ, this lady be behind bars. And then they'd be like, but she's a celebrity on IMDb. I'd be like, oh, that's great. I don't care.
Why will you never be in politics?
I'd slam an iron fist on the table, I guess. I don't know.
Why is that bad?
It probably not, but I don't know. I just
Well, yeah, I
no
mean,
one's gonna let me in the room when I'm like, I'm gonna lock you up in 2 seconds.
Well, what you're doing is so important and so valuable. I'm not saying I would want you to change that. I was just curious. That's all.
I guess what I really mean to say is nobody would want to let me go anywhere near power because
You'd use it.
yeah. And
Chloe's doing her mind control thing, and it's called therapeutic wonderment. I'm wondering, whenever a therapist says, I'm wondering, watch out.
No, I've seen
There,
I-
mind control.
if I was the Attorney General in Florida, the first thing I would do is I would come out a press conference and say, there are a lot of crimes happening in our state that we seek to stop. There are a lot of bad people. There's illegal immigration. There's murder. There's drug dealing. We are going to work on all of those things and make sure that there's a base level of actual enforcement to protect the community. That being said, here is a video of a woman who lives in our state who has threatened to forcefully medically rape her son. She will be arrested immediately.
Got my vote.
I think that it's going to, I think the tide is shifting on this and it's going to change because there are so many young people now who went through the hysteria in, what was it, like 2016 to 2018 to 2020, who are now coming of age, finding their voice and making an impact. And it unfortunately is going to need to be led by these young people because the older people in power, they act like cowards. They can't protect children.
We had a guy on the show. Kellen, do you remember who that liberal guy was?
What do you say?
He was the guy who said that children should be taught about how to insert things in their rectums.
For what?
Soy pill. Yeah, soy pill. Yeah, Tate's got it.
What?
Yeah.
So I made the argument that sex education when I grew up was here's the reproductive function of a male and reproductive function of a female, and this is how babies are made. What the left is arguing now is that sex ed is about gratification.
Mm-hmm.
So the argument he made was you're homophobic because you're stopping young gay kids from learning how to pleasure each other. And I pointed out inserting foreign objects into your rectum can kill you. And he said, then you're arguing that gay people shouldn't be allowed to have sex.
Well, also, though, the normal traditional sex ed didn't teach us how to pleasure each other either. Like you said, it was just about how,
Well, that's,
your
I mean,
period
in my
works.
program as a now they want therapists to be sex educators, but not in, like there's this STD and you might want to use this type of birth control. It's like, okay, so if you get this brand of vibrator and you spread your legs like this and then reach around like that, that is the curriculum at my therapy school.
And then they want to put those books in, kindergarten, first grade.
That was Soy Pill's argument. That sex ed, he said, gay people have sex anally, and children should be taught sex ed. Therefore, teachers should be teaching minors how to use.
There is no way. I didn't intend any of this. I'm so sorry. I'm coming back from the past as a time traveler.
Please.
But there is
fault, Jim.
no way that prepubescent children, even early puberty children, should be exposed to explicit sexuality because it makes no sense. It shatters the upper limits of the brain's regulatory capacity. It's why porn, when they're exposed to porn at young age, has dramatic impact. Sex addiction is out of control now because of early exposure to pornography.
The internet.
Yes, the kids. It doesn't make sense to talk about pleasure from sexuality when the whole topic doesn't make sense. It's absurd. And if it's at 18, if somebody wants to talk about the function of orgasm or something, okay. But let's do it age appropriate for kids that are interested, and that's that.
What your friend was doing there, I mean, I don't know if you said it was a friend or what.
No, it was a guy on the show we were debating.
A guy on the show, but like, it sounds, as a psychologist, what we would almost call acting out, like where he has this idea in his mind that he wants heterosex to be the same as homosexual, and they're just not, right? I mean, I'm not even making a value judgment, but
I mean, in terms of the
well, in terms of their essential quality to the survival of society and to our species, they're just not the same. And so it sounds like he had almost kind of a rigid insistence upon saying, well, you know, if we talk about one, therefore we have to talk about the other, and in one you put something in a hole, and so in the other you do, and so therefore we have to talk about it as if it's exactly the same, right? And to me, that's not even actually like a true holistic acceptance of what even homosexuality is. I almost think it's like degrading, you could say, to homosexuality to try to say, you know, that it's the same.
Whenever we get into arguments about the same, I get nervous. Women and men, the same. That, you know, everything's the same.
We're different.
Like, there's differences, but they should be given the same value and the same empathic attunement and everything else. Fine, no problem.
I wonder if you guys agree. I feel like humans, for evolutionary psychological reasons, will be attracted to receiving a resource or a thing or something that is perceivably beneficial.
Of course.
Makes sense, right? And does that create the political realities of human history in that any world leader, any tribal leader or governmental leader, politician who promises to give you stuff is going to have an advantage over someone who tells you no? Because I wonder, just real quick final point, the reason why I think we're seeing a lot of this with pleasuring is that I wonder if people who are hearing this actually care. Obviously, the people who watch the show and choose to do. I'm saying if YouTube were to recommend this video to a random person, are they going to hear this and think to themselves, yeah, he's not wrong, but they're going to take away from me what I want, so I'd better just back off and let it happen?
I absolutely agree that we have that tendency, but that is the lesser angels of our nature. The reality is people need to be led, and leading needs to be done with a moral compass, and things that are very uncomfortable people need to be led through it. We won't necessarily do it on our own. We need to be inspired to do things like leaning into exposure therapies and things. That's why you need a therapist there to help you through it. You have to have somebody bring you into things that are uncomfortable. Diet and exercise. That's what we need to do. It's uncomfortable. You don't want to do it? Let's go do it.
But
we've lost track of that.
When we add morality to sex, though, then people just lose their minds. And to Tim's point or Tim's question, I think it is because people don't want their porn to be taken away.
Yep.
Well, look how they riled about even putting a age verification to access porn online in many places and in many states, to the point where I think Pornhub like pulled out of stopped showing in Utah or whatever because like they enforced like an age verification, you know? I mean, but yeah, I mean, to the issue as well, again, about like sameness, you know, I mean, again, I'm not even putting a value judgment on it, but if we can just have open and honest talks about our true diversity, like the differences between.
This is the problem. Whenever bias is, when anti-biases are put in, biases are subjugated and put into the system. Same thing with tolerance. You have to be intolerant. Name of tolerance. The freedom is the answer. Freedom is the answer. But in freedom, there's got to be morality. We've lost. I'm realizing in this conversation that having conversations about morality is something we're not even doing. And there is a purpose, and to religion too. It has utility. It's good for us. You don't have to be proselytizing, but we need to begin bringing these things back into the common discourse.
And even people who are not religious, because I was saying earlier about like, oh, well, there's this protective factor of mental health for religiosity. So I just want to say, even for people who are not religious, like even if it's, meditation, or in fact, actually my husband, he's not religious, but like he goes to church anyway and like understands. I mean, it's so interesting when you start learning about the Judeo-Christian foundation of our country and what our founders said about the importance of religion. And even those who did not believe still embraced the tenets of it. And so I feel like there's this hostility to religion. I don't know about you, Naomi, but when I was in school, even the way they would talk about evangelical Christians, you would think that they were talking about Nazis or straight white males, right?
Oh, yeah, in my sexuality class, we were taught that they call it Christianization is the root of all like sexual, not the root of all, but the root of a lot of sexual dysfunction and repression they blame on Christianity. But now we're moving to a point where the sexual ethic that we're being taught is just consent. As long as there is consent, it is wrong for us to moralize anything that other people do. And where has it gotten us? Jazz, what's her last name? Jennings getting a dilator shoved up her or him. And these books being put in classrooms. And we need to stop being scared of saying, no, you know what? Sex is moral. It is a moral act that we do. It is existential. It can bring life into the world. If anything is moral in this world, it's that.
Yeah. I think one of the issues of moralization is also the logic behind the morals. Why do we hold them?
Yes, they usually have a biological sort of underpinning to them.
I think
they're good for humanity. That's why they exist.
I think the reason you don't teach children how to insert things into their bum-bums is because they could die.
You don't have to even go there. Yes, that's true, but it's just that it's traumatizing. All this stuff is trauma. The kids have a regulatory capacity. Their brains are gentle. They're easily exceeded in terms of their capacity. You don't want to do that to a kid. It changes them forever.
So what do you think the future is going to look like with them literally doing it to kids?
What is the future going to look like?
So Gen Alpha. I think Gen Alpha is the next generation. There's about 42 million. So we do have population issues, but this is the generation largely getting these books, these lessons, and access to these videos. Yeah. What will this generation be like if the majority of them are experiencing this over
porn addicted? That's an easy one. That's where a lot of it goes.
I think one of the reasons I was reading about the rise of erectile dysfunction in young men, and the argument is that it's caused by porn addiction.
And in terms of also dysfunction in the workforce, lack of participation, video games, pornography, number one, number two.
Bible sales are up 22%, I think. No, I'm serious. And those are first-time buyers. And that's not, there's, plenty of other great, religions as well. So, I mean, to your point, Tim, like, where does this all go? My hope is that although where this all goes to me, obviously, is despair, that when people do reach despair, that ultimately our spirit, our humanity, something inside of us will reach out, for what's true, for what's real. And then they'll get served a Timcast video, or, they'll pick up Can I Say That? Or they'll see a Dr. Drew show, or whatever Naomi gets up to next.
That's what I'm doing.
But yeah, I mean, I think that we have a survival mechanism that although we can go down deep into despair, there will be some light seeking
provided we don't put a government, institutional stuff that takes over on our behalf. That's when it just becomes
Game
ossified.
over.
So here's my question for the experts. If a child is wired this way over the first 9 years of their life, can they overcome that wiring later in life through therapy? And
I believe yes.
Again, we don't know what it is yet. I think I understand what it will be. And yes, absolutely, this stuff can be treated. But like anything else in mental health, they have to be highly motivated, and getting people to want to participate and do the treatment or have the resources for it. Things aren't covered.
It's the I Am Legend challenge then of what happens when the majority of Gen Alpha says, we all want the same thing at the same time, affirm us. they'll have the political power. They'll
They'll
vote for
be
it.
affirmed, but I think that at you once you go deeper and deeper into that affirmation spiral, there is an emptiness. There's a loneliness. You realize at the end of the day, this is just me and my AI girlfriend, and there is a world out there. I believe even if it's just simply evolution, that there's a part of us that is going to seek to bond and connect and recreate, procreate, with somebody else. It's like a heat-seeking missile part of ourselves that I just think will get activated.
I mean, from a Christian perspective, I think that it is absolutely possible to come back from the first 9 years of your life being programmed in your neuroplasticity because God, in my belief system, puts something on all of our hearts to seek good and self-actualize if we choose that. But we have to choose it, and there's sure not very many incentives to do that right now.
Meaning making other people. That's the human experience. That's it. Yeah. We need to get back to that.
There are a lot of people who are considered degenerates that have found God. A great example is Russell Brand, who was largely viewed as a celebrity degenerate, doing drugs and philandering and all that stuff. And then he got baptized, found God, and now he talks all about it. There are a lot of people in the skateboard community. It's what I know that were just binge drinking, drug addicted, and now more and more every day, there's another guy who's coming out and it's like, oh, he's got baptized.
Yeah.
Let me ask though, is that usually part of their recovery process? They're doing recovery and then they find religion? Or are they finding, usually it's recovery, because again, Russell, a good example, he was well into his recovery and then it kept expanding.
But what precedes recovery is hitting bottom.
Yes, they have to want to change. There's a horrible.
But wanting to change comes from hitting bottom. So I'm just trying to say.
I don't think it needs to be bottom.
No,
right?
but I mean, it doesn't have to be. But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to say a saving grace to Tim's, picture about like, what about the deepest, darkest parts?
Yeah, it goes bad. It goes bad, and that's when people become motivated to change.
There's a story I like to tell. I met a guy. He was a skateboarder, punk rock kind of guy. And he was very Christian and no drugs and anything like that. And he told me his story was that he used to do a lot of drugs and drink a lot. I asked him, like, how did you end up becoming a Christian? And he said that he was in the woods after a party of just binge drugs and drinking. In the morning, he woke up, went to take a leak. And when he walked, 15, 20 feet away from the group, as he was pissing, he felt a booming voice within his chest say, why are you doing this? And it caused him to have an anxiety attack. And then he heard the voice again, why are you doing this? You should stop. And then he had this experience and immediately tried seeking answers, reading, what was this? How did I feel? And hear this voice. And then I think naturally, because you have the majority of religion, the people he came to were priests and religious folk who explained to him divine intervention or whatever they thought it might have been. And then from that point on, he never did another drug. He cleaned up, opened a business, and started living a healthy and productive life.
Well, now we're talking about these spiritual moments, these moments of clarity, these moments of feeling like something stepped in from the outside. Those people change.
Yeah.
And they have those experiences. Now, there's a lot of routes in that change, but when somebody feels that incredible moment of change, they're extraordinary. I don't know what they are. I believe
it happened for me. I mean, it happened for me before. I was not raised Christian. I was raised very secular. My dad's an astrophysicist. He thinks that it is just silly what I believe. But it was almost a logical decision because I was looking at my life, looking at my psyche and thinking, what is my worldview? Because whatever it is, which I should probably define, it is not working for me. Living with no faith was actually making me very anxious, very depressed. The idea that, like, what is my meaning? Actually, what is the meaning of all of this? Having a religion, if not just Christianity, like another religion too, or just a sense of spirituality, connecting to the meaning is so beneficial and nurturing.
Faith, hope, meaning, and something bigger than yourself.
Something bigger than yourself. If you stop looking in, trying to find yourself, I hate that pop psychology term of like, oh, you just have to find yourself. Like, no, it's outside of you.
Well, that's an interesting point too about this whole thing that you were saying, Tim, about the algorithms, that just take you down this like weird, deep, dark hole. And in a sense, from a Christian perspective, I think that would be where you're essentially making an idol of yourself, right? And of course, that leads to kind of a wasteland. But again, the good news, I believe that our species has survived for, goodness knows how long. I think that there is some part of us, that will snap back.
Well, and every great myth and great story, whether it's Gilgamesh or Candide, it's always at the very end, what did you learn from your great journey? What I learned was to go back to my community and participate, or in Candide's case, it was tend your own garden. Just get back to the people that you love and get back to your community, be of service, make a difference, and keep it simple.
Part of me, I don't worry at all about any of it.
You don't worry about what?
Any of it.
Any of what?
All the problems, all the crises, all the Elsa Gate, whatever it might be, because certainly there are things that I think we should influence to improve. But the worst case scenario that I see as being, if we completely fail in every regard to preserve, the degenerates will die off, and the smaller but stronger, more resilient people of strong will and mental fortitude will then start to procreate once again and reform and rebuild.
Provided we don't screw up this wonderful system we have here in this country.
No, I think even, imagine nuclear bombs dropped all over the world. Even if you only have 73 humans remaining, I'm fairly confident that they'll make it.
It's the top 20% rule, the top 20% of humanity could redo it. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think even if bombs dropped and all that was left, 73 is a bit hyperbolic. Maybe that's too rough. But maybe there's a few thousand humans left, and they're the dumbest humans that exist. They'll probably still make it. They will start reproducing. There will be more humans. Several hundred years later, you will have tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of humans. So I don't see a reality where the resilience of humans of mankind is defeated by this one period of weird mass formation psychosis.
Even with the advent of AI and the proliferation of that, you don't view that as an existential threat, or do you?
I have some hypotheses, theories, and I guess what would you call it? Imaginations on what may or may not happen with AI. One thing that I actually pitched this. It's a short story that I came up with on the show came up a long time ago, and it's that in 200, 300 years, all of humanity is seemingly wiped out. There's only one city that remains. It's a population of around 7 million people. No one knows how humanity was wiped out or how they died. And there are scouting missions that explore outside of the city, and every other city around the world is just lying in ruins. They try booting up old servers and find that around 2080 or so, news just stopped getting written, and there's nothing there. Newspapers ended way earlier than that. No idea. And then one day, a group of tall, slender humanoid beings in full white suits with chrome helmets appear and attack one of the scouting missions. They try shooting at them. The bullets don't seem to work. They film it all. Headquarters is like, what is this? Eventually are these the aliens or whatever creatures that destroyed humanity? And then one day, at a fight in a junkyard, a car is knocked over and it falls, crushing one of these things. And then the rest of them flee, and the humans pull the helmet off, and it's a human with no hair. And the story is, at some point, humans all went underground into pods and facilities where they were networked into the Matrix, essentially by choice. The last humans that remain on Earth were the more tribal and rural folk who don't really pay attention to the internet, had kids, live a simple life. And this is all just, I'm imagining this idea. Around 2077, the news stories that were being written were more and more being written in the neural web and less so on the internet most people could access. So the servers you find will slowly stop. If you took Benjamin Franklin and brought him here today and said, learn about the world, he'd say, get me a periodical. And we'd be like, okay. And he'd end up learning only tiny fractions of what's really going on because we now use the internet and he wouldn't know where to find it. So that's one idea I have of what might happen. There will be humans that resist getting plugged in, don't go underground, don't neural net themselves. And that's one just one vision.
Keep using that brain for good, Tim. But you know what Corolla keeps saying? He keeps saying there's going to be safe spaces and octagons. That's what he's been saying that for the last 10 years.
Let's go.
And I said, and Florida and California, safe spaces, octagons. And I said, Adam, your prediction has come all the way true. There's going to be a UFC fight in the White House in the Rose Garden. I can't believe it's literally happening. And I thought, wow, safe spaces and octagons is similar to what you're describing.
That's not bad. Yeah. You go to California and they're going to strip you naked. give you a jumpsuit and say you'll get food when we deem you get food.
Yeah.
Shave your head, wear the mask. No one can know your race or
Safety,
gender.
Uber Alice,
At
everybody.
Mamdani's
Uber Alice.
public grocery store, you'll always get your rations.
Yeah.
That's right. And then you'll say, screw this, I'm going to Florida. You walk into the borders of Florida, they hand you a shotgun and say, good luck out there.
But isn't it interesting that four of us would say the same thing, which is the impulse to want to be governed like that is so bizarre to want that. It's even more bizarre to want to do that to people from my perspective.
Well, see, but that's what in my book I talk about common objections to free speech. And one of them are actually things about like, but what about safe spaces and things like that? And when I give a talk about this, I actually show a picture of an ostrich with his head buried in a sand. And I'm like, does this ostrich look safe to you? Right? Like, does it really make you safe?
Why do people, I'm trying to figure, you're a psychologist. I mean, I've been in mental health for a long time. I can't figure out what that predilection is to want to participate, to want to.
Do you think that it's fear? Do you think it's just
fear,
a higher
but it's the
capacity for
oddest
fear?
sort of way of dealing with fear. And then for the people that, like Newsom, that have these totalitarian impulses, they want to do that to people. I just cannot get my head around it.
Right.
those
So the
people have
nurturance. Go ahead.
No, I mean, those people don't. We have pretty solid understandings of people who are Machiavellian, narcissistic, and those.
Yeah, I don't want to. That's the dark triad, obviously, but they'll do anything that serves their needs, really.
Right.
But why the impulse? Why do they go that way?
It's the nurturance, I think. So
the
again,
superior. I'm virtue. It's a virtue signal.
Again, it's ironic, but like, so it's the female way of displaying a need for power is through nurturance, and then
I
the
care more.
stereotype of men on the
Well,
left
like-
is that they're soy boys,
could be.
right? So
Just like Jazz's mom.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
care so much. I'm going to kill him if he doesn't shove this up his cooch. It's crazy.
To say wound.
Wound, whatever.
And then they get mad at me and say it's not correct because it's a surgical orifice. And I'm like,
Surgical orifice, whatever.
Go with that.
But to your
It's just
point
all
as well, I mean,
suppressed.
like, how do people get that way, right? I mean, they spend a lot of years in indoctrination camps. I mean, schools, right?
demons.
Yeah, it's so.
See, I bonded with Bill Maher on this the other day because he and I were trained at a time when the pursuit of an approximation, because you can never get to the truth, but the pursuit of the truth was everything. Now it is non-existent. It begs no issue.
See, I actually dropped out of high school, and I
Really? Me too.
I oddly enough went on to like graduate from an Ivy League school and get a PhD, but I didn't graduate from college until I was 29. And I used to feel like I'm one down for that or whatever. But I came to realize I think it was all those years of just having a GED and like having to think for myself. I think that's the only reason I didn't come out of a PhD program singing their little song. I think when kids go into those schools like so young and their brain is
It used to be
literally still
different, I'm telling you.
forming.
It used to be about independent thought,
like we need to
pursuit of the truth.
Bring back the Socratic method or something.
It
because
was all Socratic method.
Was it?
It was all analytic thought. It was all, we don't care what you know. We want to know what you don't know. Show us how your brain works, how careful your thought is. Convince me of something.
Yeah,
Well, how-
they've come to the conclusions now and just want you to be able to pair them.
how can you use the Socratic method in a 1-minute clip economy?
I know.
So like Jubilee is a great example. They get massive viewership when they do these surroundeds. I'm assuming you guys have seen them. The problem is I was watching one where I think it was Eleazar Perez was trying to use the Socratic method, but everyone's bored by it, so they flagged him off before he even got to his point. And I'm like, well, he's trying to understand the positions so that he could break them apart and then explain where the fallacies are, but they don't give you time for that anymore.
Well, I think it's not just that they don't have time. They haven't thought about it that deeply, and being quizzed on their own beliefs is threatening.
Yeah.
Like you
Threatening.
said too, it's an attention economy. So they're actually less interested in getting to the truth than they are of getting ahead.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I'm so depressed now.
Well, that's, but always take solace in the fact that you are of strong-minded mental fortitude, so you and your family will be fine.
Octagon.
After
See you
everything,
in the octagon, Tim.
I'm gonna say this: when everything collapses and society is a bunch of ashes and rubble, and hipsters are running around stealing chickens, I'm gonna be all right. I'm not saying I'm an expert survivalist. I'm not saying I'm gonna live in luxury or wealth. I'm saying I will live.
No, I agree with that. However, two thoughts I have. One is I have a kind of a, I don't know, humanity exists in my heart and I worry for it. And then so much garbage rains down on me every day through the internet. It's hard not to react to it. That's really the horrible thing.
Rudyard
You're a good
Lynch,
person.
Rudyard Lynch of What If Altist has a viral post going around where he said, "Get off the internet now. literally everyone of all factions is going crazy and it's impossible to function. Remove yourself from this. He said something to the effect of that he stepped away for a few weeks, came back and realized just how insane everyone was and how it's going to lead to, a great tumult, and you need to get away from it, build your support and survival structures and how it makes sense for you and your life and where you live. The challenge I take from that, he's correct. Literally everyone's crazy to varying degrees. Us, a little bit probably too, but, not as bad as most or many. The issue I see, though, is if you're not observing the fray and what's going on in the conflict, you'll be consumed by it unknowingly, caught by surprise. So while I agree, the problem is many people will walk up to the culture war on the internet and take a look at it and get sucked in like the Tasmanian devil, pulling everybody into the whirlwind.
Yeah.
I think it's important to actually try and stand over it and understand what's happening so you can survive, protect yourself, and maybe succeed in some way.
Well, to that point, this conversation has actually inspired me. I want to offer something to people for free that would be online for if they don't want to totally walk away yet. I've been thinking about this. I want to start like a book club about free speech where we can talk about like, I tried to express myself and I got scared, or I expressed myself and it went well, or I heard somebody say something I disagreed with, but I engaged anyway, or whatever. So if people are interested, they can go to freespeechtoday.com and you'll find a way to contact me through there. And I'm just going to start like a free way for people to gather and talk about it.
Yeah, building that support system, honestly, to inspire others. And courage begets courage. Because, so many people, even just me saying the most basic truths, they have come to me saying exactly the same thing is going on in my program. I think I'm going to say something. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And so just say the truth and then see what happens. It'll be fine.
It's so crazy to me that at this stage of my life, words like freedom, cowardice, courage are constantly on my lips. I never imagined, it was not there 10, 20, certainly 30 years ago. We were interested in having fun and making a difference. And now it's like you have to have courage, and everyone else, there's so much cowardice. It's remarkable.
Let's go back to the 90s.
Go back to the 80s. That was fun.
But this
I don't remember it.
Pissed I wasn't there for them.
This can be fun too. This can be subversive. It feels rebellious now to like actually like get into free speech. Like I think we can have fun with it.
That's so nutty that the core principle of our founding fathers is something subversive now.
Yeah.
I had an idea for the coffee shop we've been trying to open, which maybe will happen. It's taken a millennia. I think the city's been obstructing our coffee shop efforts, so it is what it is. But we are making movement, and there is some good news on that front. But the idea was every Saturday morning, we would do a communal event called Saturday Morning Cartoons. Parents, bring your kids.
Hot dogs?
Cater breakfast. Eggs, sausage, and bacon.
I love that.
And pancakes. And we would play approved cartoons for the kids, educational, not psychotic, weird hot dog dancing, really basic stuff that, maybe not even necessarily cartoons, but Mr. Rogers level, like teaching stuff. And then the parents would socialize with each other. The kids would socialize with each other, and it would create a community bond.
Oh, for sure.
So like I was mentioning, with no one playing baseball in my neighborhood anymore, this is what has me really worried, is that people don't interact in any meaningful way. So maybe, as you mentioned, the book club, I'm thinking, everybody out there who's listening to this, looking for solutions, your community, your neighbors, where you live, you guys should be meeting up once a week. That used to be church.
Go to church.
Yep.
Just say go to church.
Church is the easy way.
It's there already.
I can say, from a fact-based logical assessment, church is an excellent prescription to the social ails you are experiencing. And it's not even about whether you truly believe in God or anything like that. The communal function of being around your neighbors, understanding the needs of your neighbors in your community, is what makes human civilization function. And that's gone right now. Largely, not completely.
Amen.
And even if you're not Christian, go listen to the sermon, take what you want from the moral teaching, leave the rest, view it as allegory, whatever. Just go and be in a group of people who are thinking about morality. That's good for your soul.
Unfortunately, so many churches, though, are like putting out, I hate to say this, but like a bunch of woke garbage.
Yep.
So another thing that you can do is you could have people over to your house and put on like some Pastor Alan Jackson sermons, or, watch like some Charlie Kirk talks or whatever.
I'll just make my pitch for the recovering community too. That's what their foundation is. And you can do it by Zoom, and it works kind of that way too.
Isn't it amazing, though, that a component of recovery is God?
Oh, it's something bigger than yourself. It's look. It came out of a sort of religious. The clergy participated in the generation of the 12-step, and this is all this stuff humans have known forever. It's just we like get amnesia about it periodically, or we think we know better. Whenever you hear a human saying we figured it out, we know now the real just run. We've always known what works for humans. We just know, and we just move away from it periodically, and that's what's been happening lately. Recovery is faith, hope, connection,
meaning,
difference making, meaning making, looking at yourself and your flaws as a human being, sharing it with another human,
confessing.
It's confessing. That's
Make
where that
amends.
came from.
Yeah.
There was
Making amends, participating, helping other people. It's all the same stuff. And people, guess what? They get so much better from it.
There was a clip from Rogan's show that went viral that I'm sure is largely missing its context, but he said he was talking about the Big Bang. And I could be getting this wrong, so just fact check me. But he said something like, if you're going to tell me that there's this great miracle in the Big Bang or a guy named Jesus, I'm going to go with Jesus.
Yes,
So-
If you have to choose something, you have to pick a worldview. Like I was saying, my worldview sucked. It wasn't working. Pick a worldview that works for you, that includes faith and meaning.
I think step one is identifying. So the way I explain it to people is that I don't know what this philosophy is called, but I read it a long time ago in the hacker community, social engineering. To be aware of yourself, they said at all times, be cognizant of how you feel, what you want, and what you are doing, and why you are doing it. Then imagine the people you are interacting with. Imagine you are sitting across from both you and that person, watching that interaction between the two of you. How do you feel seeing these two people interact? What do you think they want, and why do you think they are doing this? And then imagine these two people, but zoom out above the world and imagine all of the people in this area all doing similar things, and try and imagine what they want and why they're doing what they're doing. So first, second, and third person analysis and then bring it back to yourself and use that. And it will greatly benefit you in understanding the world, getting what you want. So I try to tell people to do something like that. And they say the reason I think the second person is the most important is because you need to be critically analyzing the actions you're taking, and imagine watching yourself take these actions.
100%. It's deontological. It's Kant.
Yeah. You might be going, that guy's a dick.
Yeah.
Or you might be going like, maybe I'm too nice to people.
Conduct your life as though you could watch a film of it and defend every choice you make and feel good about it.
This has been very, very fun. So I'm really glad y'all came out. We had this great conversation.
Thanks for bringing us.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just go around, and if you want to shout anything out, where can people find you?
Yeah, thanks again. freespeechtoday.com. And I hope people come so we can start our free discussion group.
Thanks again, Tim. Super fun. You can find me on X and Substack at Naomi Epps Best.
X, Dr. Drew, Rumble. Are we on Rumble home channel right now? Is it?
We are, yeah, front page.
Shout out to Rumble. It's Ask Dr. Drew on Rumble, YouTube, drdrew.tv. You can find it there, and everything else is drdrew.com.
Right on. We, of course, are back at 8 p.m. for Timcast IRL. Don't miss it. Bring your friends. Tell everyone you know. This has been really great. We'll have clips up aside from that, but thanks for hanging out. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast, and other than that, we'll see you at 8 p.m.